seems like it's going to be Branded versus Yubel.
Branded versus Yubel. The branded player being Elijah Blaine Harris, very notable, strong top player in the South African community, and Zubair, a very notable tier player as well in the community. He's had a very, very strong season. But on Blaine's side here is won the dice roll, opted to go first. Draw standby main, normal summons Aluba and Aluba effect. Looking to pick up a Brandon and White, potentially to play around a potential Ash Blossom in Zubair's hand. Opts for the Brandon and White.
I think just directly going to matchups here, what do you think Yubel's game plan is here against Branded? Because I'm staring down a potential puppet lock. I'm looking at Yubel wanting to be destroyed, but Mirror Jade's here to banish things. It seems like an uphill battle, but give me some more context.
It is actually a very uphill battle, but both decks are extremely grindy. Both decks want to get into a mid-game situation. Both decks want to really just stabilize and simplify the game state. So I think it's really whoever gets to go first, and a non-engine check from both players because of the potential puppet lock and because of the absurd amount of interruption Yubel can put up. It looks like we're going Lubellion here, Lubellion to fetch Saronia and then activating Branded in High Spirits, revealing the Saronia that will be able to send a Dark Dragon from a dragon or a Dark Monster from Blaine's extra deck to the graveyard, looking to send Titaniclad and then potentially discarding a Saronia to go and add a card that mentions Fallen of Albaz.
I mean, Branded in High Spirits, that feels like it's been around for ages, but only quite recently, I'd say the past probably 2 seasons that we've been playing in, or the last 2 releases of packs, really, that it's been used a lot more in Branded lists. Can you maybe give an inkling as to why? Or
it helps you find lines that play through Branded Fusion better, as well as just provides consistency in 60 card builds. So in Blaine's list, it's just there to play around Ash on Branded Fusion to get set up. Like, we've already got Retribution set up. We've already got Titaniclad, which will fetch Quem in the end phase. The Saronia sending the Retribution, activating immediately, just shotgunning the Branded Fusion here, met by no Ash. What we do here then is, because if the Branded Fusion is negated, then we have Cartesia and Branded in White plays, which will help us play through the Ash Blossom.
And I think looking at this right now as well, no interruption whatsoever seen from the Yubel player yet. I mean, we could still potentially see a nib come down, but I almost feel that with Branded having a joking main phase 3 in their end phase, I'm not too sure if that's going to stop a lot, unless he times it really well.
No, Biru in this board state would be very impactful, actually, because it gets rid of a lot. It will get rid of possible Grand Gignor, get rid of a possible Sanctifier for the puppet setup, which Blaine is opting to do here, especially because we don't have the Branded Lost, and what Branded Lost provides us for Nibiru is it fetches Mercuria, and Mercuria can just simply negate the Nibiru. But it looks like we're going Lubellion here, discarding the Cartesias because we want the Cartesia in the graveyard for Quem. Lubellion going to shuffle back the Albaz. Ooh, and maybe it's Alpha Mirror Jade, or potentially the Cartesia straight into Sanctifier.
Yep. I mean, that just means we're going for the puppet lock, right?
Yeah. We are playing around every possible interruption, even though Zubair probably doesn't have any hand traps. We still want to play around hand traps and the potential board breakers. Okay. So a little bit of a misstep there. Instead of shuffling back the Lubellion, we're going to shuffle back the Cartesia straight and just immediately go into Sanctifier. So this on its own already represents a puppet lock, which could be game ending. But we'll have to see what Blaine decides to do with the leftover engine in his hand. If he just wants to pass on the simplified board state because Zubair might not have any non-engine, or if he wants to continue playing and limit his follow-up options.
I mean, he still has that, I'm quite sure that's Branded in White in hand as well.
Branded in White.
Give him some more follow-up if he is met with any sort of interruption or some, I mean, I don't even think a board break is going to do much with the puppet lock in
really,
play here.
It's really only Droplet that can answer the scenario, or maybe a potential call by, but that's really it. It is a bit nasty because the Titanic Clap will be able to float into a Quem interface, which is done here, and then Quem will be able to send Albaz or Cortesia, depending on what he thinks is going to be more impactful, if it's Grand Ignore or if it's a Mirror Jade.
Yeah, I think, I mean, already game one, going first, letting Brandon just completely pop off here. And some of this, it does look like Zubair needing a lot of clarification on these cards. I know this is a player who has been around the scene quite a while. So interesting to see that might just be specific wording and interactions with Yubel as a deck. It being quite new with support.
I don't really think it's a case of him not knowing what the cards are. I think it's him just double checking. You know, it doesn't hurt to double check wording or things that you might not be 100% on.
Ooh, looks like
especially on a Vita match where there's a lot of nerves going on.
Absolutely. I think that there's extra pressure on the feature match where someone is kind of like, I don't want to misplay or like misrepresent a game state or anything like that. So there's quite a bit. But so, here we go. Sanctifier, give it puppet lock.
Players passed to Zubair, draw phase, priority for Zubair's passed, passing back to the Sanctifier, and the Sanctifier is going to summon the puppet and the Saronia. So from now forward, Zubair is locked out of special summoning because the Gimmick Puppet immediately on summon applies an effect that would prevent Zubair from special summoning monsters for the rest of the turn, except Gimmick Puppet monsters.
And yeah, this deck list definitely does not have any Gimmick Puppet monsters. New support potentially, well, is coming soon, so we could see some people splashing some things. But here we have an Extravagance coming through, trying to see what he can get out of it. Only banishing 3.
Prosperity.
Prosperity, sorry.
Just to look at the top 3.
Yeah.
Just trying to find a little bit of non-agent to potentially survive the follow-up turn. But what Zubair hasn't realized yet is now a card has left the extra deck, so that triggers Quem to be able to summon from the graveyard, which is really unfortunate.
Yeah, you don't want to be staring down these quick effects on your turn here.
Yeah. So he's going to summon Albaz. Albaz is going to try and fuse into whatever he wants, actually, and he'll discard the Branded White because in phase Branded White will trigger because it was discarded by a full of Albaz to reset or add itself. So we're activating Nightmare Pain here. We're not going to fuse with the Albaz, we're just summoning it.
Yeah, I really don't know what Yubel does in this situation, and I mean, it looks like there's an impermanent hand there. I don't think that's what was added from the Prosp. But interesting, not wanting to utilize that on the Sanctifier in his draw step, whilst he had an empty board.
The Sanctifier cannot be targeted by card effects.
Oh yeah, that's important. That's an important clause. I totally remembered that one and just wanted to see if you, if you knew it. But yeah, that's a bit of a problem. So I'm really not sure what can be done overall for Yubel here. I mean, they have the field spell up, which is very powerful in its own right, but not being able to get monsters out.
What the Yubel player here is trying to do is trying to set up a turn 3 play during their opponent's turn. So Gravekeeper Swarmer can summon during opponent's turn, destroy one V monster they control, which will, if it's a Yubel monster or Spirit of Yubel, we know they added Mature Chronicle to hand. If it's a Spirit of Yubel, it will get a double float because the Spirit of Yubel will float back into Yubel monster, and the Nightmare Throne will be able to summon a Yubel monster with a higher level, or the same level from the deck or graveyard.
So definitely still some room to play here for Yubel, but you're staring down pretty much everything Brandon has to throw at you.
It's a lot of resources the Branded players accumulated, yes. And starting the turn off with Branded as white as well, so we can fuse with Albaz on the field and any monster in our graveyard, so sort of a miracle fusion. But we're just gonna hard fuse the Saronia and the Albaz.
And what's he gonna be going for here?
Board Furious, 2 Dark Dragon monsters. So it has a quick effect to destroy one card you control and one card your opponent controls. Sort of like a miniature Destiny hero Phoenix Enforcer.
I mean, I'm just concerned for the field spell here. I don't think that's going to be lasting much longer, or at least it's not going to get its effect.
No, really not. I think what Blaine should really be targeting here is the Nightmare Pain so that he can actually get some damage in if there is a Yubel that is going to come down. The Saronia sending Branded opening here, which prevents, will one time prevent the Branded fusions from being destroyed by card effects, as well as Retribution is in graveyard, so if he wants to extend, he can just Retribution banish, add back the Branded opening.
Yeah, I mean, when you are the Yubel player in the situation, you're staring this down, I think already from the side of Zubair, actually pushing through this, not kind of going for the option of let's just see what you have and then scoop shortly after. Definitely feeling like the Yubel deck still has legs to get through this. So it's really, I'd say this is Zubair's game to win here. But what I want to try and do is just with our tech team, let's try to see if we can get these deck lists and see what some of the different adjustments they can make it are as we kind of extend further into this match. But Retribution Banish.
Going to be adding that the branded fusion that's in the graveyard.
Ooh, let's see. Okay, does manage to get it back into the hand.
Branded fusion can send Cartesian for an Albaz for Albion, and then Albion can banish the Lubellion on field and the Albaz in graveyard to summon a Mirajade to the EMZ. Then after, he can Lubellion tribute the Albion, place a branded lost from deck on the field, and then the Albion will be able to trigger in the end phase if there is an end phase.
I mean, the amount of power on this board and interruption that we already have coming in from lane, I don't think we're going to get to one, but I do want to be proven wrong from the Yubel deck. I haven't seen enough of it lately. And I think it coming in with this new support, you do want to root for it and see what the new support can do. But it just looks like Blaine is just playing this near perfectly with his lines. Mirajade coming out now, and we have a banish now. That is
Blaine
terrifying.
is doing here, he's identifying his lose conditions and he's playing accordingly, which is how you should be playing this match, because you don't want to get into a situation where you're giving Yubel extra turns, where you're giving Yubel more resources than it should have. Like, you just want to puppet lock them and end the turn in the game on the following turn. So what Mirajade is going to do here, if for some reason he cannot clear the Nightmare Pain, and if for some reason he floats into double Yubel, at least the one Mirajade will be able to out a Yubel.
I mean, in this case, Yubel's grind game seems really strong at the moment. So being able to just layer interruptions and kind of ways that you can play through it and ways you can push a bit further is going to be so important. What I'm curious about here is, what are Blaine's kind of next steps before going into the battle phase to try and push? What options is he going to try and take here? Because it's branded, he still has a lot of lines ahead of him.
It's really just Lubellion, and then Lubellion trying to place branded lost from deck to the spell trap zone. And then maybe we see a potential fusion play with the Quen or the Aluba, maybe a potential Guardian Chimera coming down. It really just depends on what engine Blaine has left in his hand.
I think that loss there, just kind of cutting off a lot of responses from Yubel's side, is going to be really important. If Blaine stays in the driving seat here, it's going to be really difficult for Yubel to actually find the space, especially being the second player here. Turn player is still Blaine. Lost does so much work.
Yeah,
it's absolutely insane as a continuous spell card.
The mindsets on this game state right now, Blaine is effectively thinking, how do I win this right now? And Zubair is thinking, how do I give myself just an extra turn?
Absolutely. And looking at this now, 31 minutes on the clock, so we've only actually spent 14 minutes with this match. And I think there's still a lot of room where Zubair, within that time, time is not even a concern at all. If he can find a way to extend this and get the first win, kind of throw it back, definitely something that he wants to focus on.
So on attack declaration, Spirit of Yubel is going to trigger to summon itself. We're going to Mercuria negate that.
That is insane. That's so good.
Very good. That is huge for Blaine here.
Ooh.
Denying the Spirit of Yubel from being summoned, which also denies the Grave Squirmer from summoning itself and destroying the Spirit of Yubel. Which
he picks it up. Picks up his cards. There it is.
It is
okay.
all she wrote.
Yeah, I mean, I think that was awesome. Looking at the way that Blaine was playing so much to the board state and still having that Mercuria ready to go to negate the effect that is most important for Zubair. But something we can do now is we can actually take a look at some of these deck lists and see what the siding pattern is going to start looking like. I think the important thing to consider here is Yubel probably going to want to go first here in this matchup. I mean, most of the time you want to go first, but I think it's still relevant to talk about it a bit, as there are some nuances, especially if you have very transformative sideboards.
Yeah.
But if we look at what Zubair has here, quite a few going first that could spell doom for Blaine. I mean, He's got the D barrier Anti-spell fragrance is also really strong. And then those 3 forbidden droplets that, like you stated, is so good against Sanctifier to like stop that Gimmet Puppet lock. But I guess if you're going second, is that still going to even be your focus?
I don't think so. I think what Zubair realistically wants to side here is the D barriers that are in a 3D barriers that are in his side deck, the anti-spell fragrance because it is game ending for Blaine on his branded strategy, and potentially Cosmic Cyclone to deny branded lost access. What Blaine might be siding though is even more interesting.
Oh wow, yeah. No, he's got all sorts there. So it's nice that we're seeing more play of Dark Ruler no more, but even from that, I mean, we have a Tikaboo that could potentially come down.
Well, not
I know,
this game, but
going second,
potential game
but
three.
maybe later. I think that's I saw it and I was just like, I have to mention it. Putting that in branded is spicy. But he's also got the Masquerade, which I guess would only probably come into a game 3 situation. But Dark Ruler no more, I think, and Book of Eclipse probably going to be the stars of the show here.
Yes, no, absolutely. Dark Ruler no more is huge against Yubel, especially on mature Chronicle builds where you don't really end on Chamber or the Yama being able to banish itself to reborn the Unchained Soul of Rage. So Dark Ruler is especially good against those builds, as well as Blaine siding Drawn Lockbird, which could very well come in for this matchup, especially if you start off with Nightmare Throne first action. And then what we might potentially see as well is Cosmic Cyclones, just to deny Nightmare Pain and Nightmare Throne.
And I think a big thing on Cosmic Cyclone as well is I've always seen as a card that being able to utilize it going first and second with it being a quick play is really awesome. In this situation, of course, you're going to be using it as part of your board breaking strategy as Yubel sets up. But knowing that it is something that on the follow-up turns, it's not a dead card. I think that's something that we see, for example, Dark Ruler. Yes, you can kind of get rid of the board state, but at later turns, it's actually just going to inhibit you from ending the game.
Yeah.
Cosmic Cyclone feels like something that's almost always live, and in a deck where spells matter, it's a great thing to bring in.
Yeah, no, the Cosmic Cyclone will be a great out to the potential anti-spell as well. But notably, what I wanted to mention as well is Blaine is main decking 2 copies of Triple Tactics Thrust.
Oh wow, that makes his spell package so accessible.
Yes, absolutely. Especially against the inboard of Yubel, which is Varudas, which is a Omni negate. You can thrust, you can activate Brand of Fusion, then negate, and then you can thrust for another copy of Brand of Fusion because Brand of Fusion is a hard activate once per turn.
Oh wow.
So since the activation was negated, you could just thrust for another one.
Just go for another one. I think that's a big one, and for anyone that isn't too au fait with Yu-Gi-Oh! Rulings, but activation and effects of a card are 2 very different things. And negating the activation for specific once per turn wordings lets you use it again, which is huge. So knowing what cards negate is exceptionally important in navigating a matchup. But moving over to the live game here, looks like a pretty decent start here for Yubel. They've got what they need to set up their board.
Yeah, the Dark Beckoning piece package is very, very, very popular in Yubel. Essentially, Dark Beckoning Beast being able to fetch Gates, and then Gates fetching another Dark Beckoning Beast, and Dark Beckoning Beast giving you another normal summon of a 0 attack, 0 defense Fiend, which is itself, and that can go straight into Yama. And then later in the turn, Gates will be able to discard 1 card to summon back a 0 attack, 0 defense Fiend from your graveyard.
Let's get you right into the important cards. And
Looks like we're doing a very interesting line.
Yeah, I was not expecting Almirage to come down from that, to be honest.
So we're discarding the Spirit of Yubel to probably summon Spirit of Yubel. But we're going to chain Siren, banishing Spirit of Yubel, so Zubair will be forced back to summon the Dark Beckoning Beast. Players not over completely yet, because after this we still have a Unchained Soul of Yama play lined up.
I really like that, using that to kind of thwart the resolution. So now you have a very suboptimal play that you are forced to make in resolution of an effect, which is something that I think comes up more often than we think, but it's a very interesting way that cards can interact, and I love seeing it. But
so again, Blaine has identified as loose condition. He's very afraid of the actual Yubel engine. Varudas is very difficult for Branded to deal with, but the Unchained cards are not, because they are all monster removal based, which Branded plays through very efficiently. So summoning Yama here, Yama doesn't get to trigger on summon because unfortunately we've drawn the Savara.
Oh geez, okay, yeah, that is awful. that has to feel bad if you're sitting there with this hand now. I think your plays are exceptionally limited.
Not
Ooh.
extremely limited. You still have some lines you can do here, like you can go directly into a Muckracker here, or an Unchained Soul of Rage. Either
yeah, it looks like he's just going to go deeper into the Unchained
and then you
package.
can trigger Shavara, pop the Soul of Rage. That triggers the Soul of Rage to add back a Fiend monster, as well as a Yama to summon back the Soul of Rage.
Okay, looks like we're going to be going a little bit further. But
adding back Dark Beckoning Beast, which is great follow-up.
I guess the important thing here is just how effective is he going to be able to get into the Yubel package with this interruption that's already happened, and the potential follow-up that Blaine has to continue on. Promethean Princess now.
Promethean Princess triggers the Savara, sets Chamber, which will be able to reborn the Unchained Soul of Rage during the opponent's turn, and then Princess is most likely going to reborn the Savara, and then make a Ambler Whale from there.
I mean, it looks like we're playing Snake Eyes. Snake Eyes with some Unchained here, especially going into the Ambler Whale now.
It is really, really cool that these princess lines are so splashable in a multitude of decks. It really gives more decks more options.
But I mean, as I was saying previously, I think, is this on its own enough for Branded to really, to thwart Branded?
It does look like Zube has a DD Crow in his hand. So
that's very effective.
If he plays this correctly, he might be able to see a turn 3.
Our hopes are not too high over here for our Yubel player, but
starting off with Rebellion is very strong. Very, very strong. The Rebellion grabbing a Magnamut here, I'm assuming. Or just another Sarnia.
Yeah.
Sarnia being able to check all the Fiend monsters in Zube's graveyard.
Yeah, and just looking over at Blaine's deck here, trying to see what other bestials he has. It looks like he's actually exclusively playing the Serenians, so it's actually the only bestials he has in his list at the moment. But I mean, getting value off 2 Serenians here by your first turn is pretty good.
Yeah, it is still huge regardless. Ooh, Ambler Whale is especially weak to Albaz, so we're normal summoning Albaz here, discarding a card. We know what the sets are. What Zube might want to do here is immediately just chain the DD Crow to get rid of the Sarnia to remove a potential Branded Fusion access. But we can also just hold the DD Crow and wait for Retribution Banish to target the Branded Fusion to banish the Branded Fusion itself.
Ooh. I mean, Promethean Princess is what's going to be activating, so it also depends what...
Promethean Princess only triggers on special summon.
Oh, and that was normal summon of the Albaz.
Normal summon of the Albaz.
Okay. And Albaz is just going to use their quick effect here to fuse with monsters on the field. Directly into Mirror Jade. This is...
Our resolution, we get to trigger the Sarnia, most likely sending a Retribution from deck to graveyard.
I mean, just from this alone, it's looking pretty good for Blaine. But I guess really the big option here is how that DD Crow is going to interact with this. I think maybe, depending on if it is used correctly, Branded maybe not getting the kill this turn, and we actually see a second turn for Yubel, but it's going to be quite tough. I think Blaine still has 4 cards in hand.
Yeah.
I can't count exactly, but I think it's...
Ideally, what we'd want is for the Crow to be able to deny Branded Fusion access, but we don't live in a perfect world, and Blaine could have just opened either a Luba, Branded Opening, or Branded Fusion. So we'll have to wait and see. If he does, then what we can also do is we can get rid of a potential Branded in red target or Branded in white target for further extension, because there is the Albaz in graveyard now. We're going to tribute the Sarnia for Rebellion, and then Rebellion effect to place Branded Lost.
Oh, I mean, Lost interacts with Crow, right? On resolution or effects to chain to it, or would Crow still be able to go through fine with Lost on field?
With Lost on field, the opponent can activate cards or effects on the resolution of a fusion summon. So the Crow wouldn't be able to really have a chance to activate. Because we have Albaz in graveyard, we can also special summon the Cortesia, and because of the Rebellion there, this immediately represents a potential Grand Gignol. Grand Gignol can send a multitude of things here, but we're just going to chain the chamber immediately because we do not want a Grand Gigno coming down on the board, Soul of Rage getting summoned.
Cartesia hits the board, and we'll have to see what the next option is here. I mean, priority is passed. I don't think this is room for Rage to try and do anything yet.
This really is not in Zubair's favor though, because he's going to activate the Cartesia. He can't chain the Soul of Rage because the Mirror Jade will just be chained.
Absolutely, and then it uses the material needed for the resolution of the link. Just for anyone who isn't aware of Rage, it is actually there to link off monsters. If it's not on the field, it loses its material. Very dangerous interaction there. And interesting enough, the kind of similarities to Fall of Albaz himself using things on the field.
So we'll have to see how Zubair plays this out. What he's trying to do here, what he should realistically be trying to do here is play it super defensively. So not play reactively, play super proactively to the Mirror Jade. Cartesia being activated and resolving here, using the Lupelion and the Albaz in hand to go straight into Albion, sorry.
Close enough.
And then chaining one Albion, chaining two Branded Lost. Branded Lost probably fetching us something along the long lines of Albion the Shrouded Dragon, and then Albion banishing the Albaz and the Sarania, I suppose, from the graveyard to make a Lupelion. Or we can go straight into Borreload Furious Dragon with the two Saranias in graveyard.
I mean, if that's on the field, there's two interruptions. So we have Mirror Jade and we have the Borreload now.
So I think the logic behind this is Blaine is probably concerned about a potential Spirit of Yubel in hand, which Borreload will be able, Mirror Jade will be able to check, because you'd want to Borreload Furious Dragon, pop the Soul of Rage, but it looks like he's not opting for that, going straight for Mirror Jade, banishing the Soul of Rage.
And just clearing out that board as soon as possible. I mean, pretty sure that's lethal, and there you have it. Blaine taking round 2.